Hi again. This is the third or fourth time that I've been asked to talk when the subject of doubting Thomas has come up. So I began to wonder whether someone was trying to tell me something, and if so, was that someone Chris or was it God? But whatever, it did cause me to explore more deeply this subject of doubt, and I undertook a study on it, and I want to share some of those highlights from that study with you. Now, my personal experience is that tough times can make you do one of two things. They can either drive you closer to God, or they can cause you to really question. So, when my dad was dying 20 years ago, that was one of the toughest times of my life, probably the toughest time of my life to date. And there's a real bittersweet memory of it for me because, on the one hand, I was a real daddy's girl and I was going to miss my dad so much. He was the rock for our family. So it was a really tough time. But on the other hand, I have never felt closer to God than I felt during that time. He really carried me through it, like that Footsteps poem, when God carries you through tough times. On the other hand, tough times can really cause you to question God. Why is this happening? How is that fair? And at the moment, we can say, how is it fair that people that give their life to support and help other people, like health and care workers, are the ones that are most at risk? How is that fair? But that's just the reality of life, isn't it? And life is tough. But I said it can either drive you closer to God or it can cause you to really question. But let me rephrase that. Difficult times can cause you to question God, but at the same time can bring you closer to God and can build your faith. So let's have a look at Thomas. He found it really hard to believe when he was told that his friends had seen Jesus alive again. Who wouldn't? It's really natural to have difficulty believing that. He knew that Jesus had been crucified. He was his disciple. He'd followed him everywhere. He had huge affection for him, and he was distraught by his death. And then his friends told him they'd seen him alive. Now let's put that in context. If someone I loved, maybe if one of our church leaders, Jenny or Pete or Chris or Sandra, had passed away, and then you told me that you'd seen them alive, I'd have a real hard time believing that. You'd really find it difficult to convince me. But imagine that that person was someone you'd believed was the prophesied saviour of the world. How hard would that be to believe? So Thomas's reaction was not at all surprising. So it's okay to question what we don't understand. The story of Thomas shows us that that's okay. We can be honest with God. There's no point in being anything other than honest because he knows anyway. And Jesus understands. He doesn't tell Thomas off for questioning and for not believing. He just comes up with the evidence. See my hands and my side. Now, Thomas's doubts could only have been taken away by Jesus. It was only by Jesus turning up and showing him that those doubts could be taken away. So when you honestly express to Jesus what your doubts and questions are, he can come and answer those doubts and questions. So tell Jesus, tell him honestly what your issues are, and then listen and see if he responds. And too often we don't listen when we cry out to God in prayer, and then we don't always notice when the answer's given. So listen and take notice when he does listen to you and responds to your shouts. And then Thomas's reaction was immediate and it was intense. There was no faffing about at all. He just went straight to Jesus and said, "My Master and my God." He didn't even have to put his hands in the nail holes or in his side as he'd been suggested by Jesus. He just immediately knew, my master and my God. His faith was strengthened by the experience of his doubt. And he went on to take the gospel to India and then to martyr himself for his faith. Now, the study that I mentioned, that I looked at, was called Strong at the Broken Places. And in that, one of the quotes from Selwyn Hughes, who's a famous theologian and Christian counsellor, he says, doubts can be valuable if they motivate us to search deep and long for an answer. So if you are finding things tough, and a lot of us are at the moment, and it's causing you to question, that's okay. So firstly, be honest with God. Secondly, listen for the response. And thirdly, use it to deepen your faith. Thank you.